Alex here with a legal nuts and bolts video on intentional infliction of emotional distress. This is a topic I get a lot of questions on, not so much in the comments as I do in my emails. This is something that is completely and totally separate from child custody and divorce issues. If you are going to bring an action like this in Nevada, it's going to have to be in a separate lawsuit for money damages. A lot of people do not understand this, and they kind of want to roll it into their child custody case because that's where a lot of people say they're facing all sorts of false allegations. Police are being called and they're getting CPS called on them. And so they want that court to do something about it in the context of making a finding of intentional infliction of emotional distress and giving them money. You can do this, but like I said earlier, it has to be done in a separate case. And also, you have to throw away your personal idea of what you think this is. Even the dictionary isn't going to help you, unless it's Black's Law Dictionary. But more than anything, you're going to find help in your case law, your state's case law. In Nevada specifically, we have cases that define exactly what this is, and more importantly, the three elements that you must prove to win on this issue. If you do not prove all three, you do not prove intentional infliction of emotional distress, no matter what those words mean to you, and no matter what they might say in the ordinary dictionary as to what they are. So I'm going to just go over the three elements really quickly. The first element is that you have shown or can show that your opponent has done something extreme and outrageous, and that they've done it on purpose or with what they call reckless disregard. And the most important part of all is that they're doing what they're doing to cause you emotional distress. If it's not emotional distress, you cannot you cannot pursue them under this. You may have some other thing you can sue them under, like if they're attacking you physically, you may have some, obviously you're going to have some other type of cause of action to bring against them. I suppose in some ways this might overlap. I don't know, perhaps when it comes to things like bullying and such, there may be some overlap between like battery or assault or some kind of, what do they call it, unlawful imprisonment or something, along with intentional infliction of emotional distress. But I'm not sure how the dynamics of a case like that would work. So if you've shown the first element, now you have to show the second. The second is that you have to show that you have actually suffered severe or extreme emotional distress. It's not enough to show that you've been stressed out a little bit. You have to show that whatever the stress is it's severe and extreme. I think this is where a lot of people get tripped up. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to just show my ex did a horrible, horrible thing, and then they're not really able to prove the second part of it, which is that they actually did suffer severe or emotional or extreme emotional distress. I have some serious suspicions that this might require an expert witness, like a psychologist perhaps. I'm not sure, not 100% on that, but that's just a suspicion I have. You're going to have to do your own research to look into that. Because, I mean, it's going to come down to how do you show your damages. If you don't have a way of showing your damages, it can get really murky for a court to decide, or for a court to consider how they're going to put a dollar amount on that. My understanding is that it's going to be compensatory damages, so you have to show some amount that you need to be compensated for. If you're thinking that the court's just going to award some amount to punish your opponent, you need to watch my video, Punitive Damages, because that's an entirely separate issue, and the way the courts go about punishing people in the context of big fines is completely different with respect to punitive damages versus compensatory damages. Number three is you have to show actual or proximate causation. I might do a separate video on proximate cause. I think what I'll do to sort of give people an idea of what this might be, again, I have not done a whole lot of research into this because I haven't actually sued someone for intentional infliction of emotional distress. But I can at least think of examples of things that might be clues as to what road to travel for those of you who are actually serious about searching or researching what this is so that they can go after somebody for it. Anyway, that example was going to be the whole Alex Jones drama. I'm not going to call him a news source. He seems to be more like a tabloid almost with some of the claims he makes, but my understanding is that he's being sued by the parents of Sandy Hook because he's been saying that their children didn't actually die or that they didn't have kids and that it was all a hoax. And apparently, I'm not sure people really care what he says, but apparently it's causing some of his viewers to start to contact those parents, either through the mail or in person or by telephone, and that is what's causing them emotional distress. And I'm 99% sure that one of the causes of action is intentional infliction of emotional distress. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. If any of my viewers happens to know the details, feel free to post something in the comments below. But I wanted to really show that this might be a good example because, number one, it could be potentially seen as extreme and outrageous conduct to accuse parents whose children have died in a mass shooting as having faked it, or even as having alleged that their children never existed. And then, of course, number two, I can imagine that they're suffering severe or extreme emotional distress if they're getting random people coming up to them on the street and calling them and sending them letters and stuff, accusing them of lying or whatever it is that they're going through. So that's probably makes it hard for them to put the past behind them if they're constantly getting reminded of the deaths of their children. So that would potentially satisfy number two. And number three, actual or proximate cause. Alex Jones is the one saying it. An example of where you might not be able to go with that might be like, for example, suing YouTube. You could say that maybe YouTube doesn't have proximate cause to what's going on because they're just the medium that Alex is speaking through. I've heard of a lot of cases going into proximate cause where, say for example, somebody drank too much at a bar and they hit another person and killed them, and then the family of the loved one who died sues the driver, but they also sue the bar. And I think I've seen a lot of cases where proximate cause comes up because the bar is like, hey, we didn't drive, we just gave them the alcohol. And I think I've also heard of similar things coming up with like gun manufacturers, like people suing the person who made the manufacturer of the gun rather than the person who shot the gun. Anyway, if you're going to look into proximate cause, those are the types of cases that jump to mind to me. I imagine that's only really brought up because people tried to go after maybe those who sort of amplified the actual tortfeasor is what they call them, I guess, people who commit a tort, and this is a tort. So I should cover that in another video. The difference between a tort and a breach of contract is something I might cover another time. Anyway, I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this video. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to post them in the comments below. Sometimes I feel like these videos, all they really do is discourage people from going after these things, which might be the right thing to do because a lot of times people don't understand that these causes of action are meant to be difficult to bring to court. They're not meant to be something that anyone can just take anyone to court over because they were called a name or made fun of or something like that. They were meant to be deeply complicated types of cases because a lot of us go through that kind of stuff. A lot of us will encounter an evil boss or an evil ex, and it's the courts don't want to see every single one of these cases come before them. So intentional infliction of emotional distress was very carefully defined by Nevada, and of course I'm sure all the other states are doing, or already have done. This is an old cause of action. I'm sure the other states have done similar case law on this topic to make it so that it's very narrowly defined, so that not just any random person can come to court and sue over it. So yes, it's hard to win on this, but it's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be for those really egregious types of cases out there. So I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this video, and I will see you guys next time.